Hello everyone, welcome to Pokédex, a channel where I build decks for the Pokemon trading card game. Today I'm going to be playing Manectric Bats. I know this is a very popular deck, but believe it or not, I had never played it in my channel, never felt like it was the right time, but now I think it's perfect timing because the deck is really good right now, and I actually won regionals last Saturday with this exact deck list. So I'm going to go through the general idea and of course the particular card choices that I made for the tournament that I played in, and hopefully that will be cool for you guys. So I was talking with Elena, from the channel Gaia Storm, my good friend Elena, and she was asking me why is Manectric Bat so good right now? I mean, all the cards were in the format in the previous regionals, and no one was really talking about the deck that much. And I think the answer is it's all about the meta, really. So as I see it right now, let's just go on a little bit of a side note about the meta, because I think it's important. There's the meta, as I see it, is aggro decks. And when I say aggro decks, I mean Night March and Vespiquen decks. So there's kind of like two ways to build your Night March deck, with the Melodic and the Bronzong, and there's the Vespiquen deck. So I group them all together in the aggro decks because I feel like they all share the same gameplay, in that they all want to dump a lot of Pokemon into the discard pile. They all want to just stick DCs turn after turn. Their Pokemon get knocked out over and over again, but because their opponents only take one prize and they are taking two because they're knocking out EXs, they are trading favorably for prizes, so they end up winning the game. So those decks I put on the aggro deck type, so to speak. And then there's Bats decks, which include the Fighting Bats and Manectric Bats decks. These are very good decks because they can win against random decks, but they also have a decent matchup against the aggro decks. So because they are playing bats, we can just destroy Night March decks if you play them right. I mean, it's not an auto win, but it's definitely a very good strategy against those types of decks. There's also other decks like the Yveltal Zorwork decks, and some people are playing Mewtwo decks and all that. There's also always the random decks, but I think the bats and the aggro decks are the biggest groups, so to speak, and the biggest choices people are making. Because of that, going into this tournament, I wanted to find a deck that could beat both, but I don't think it's possible at the moment, at least. It's not a matter of... There's really no cards that you can tech to beat an aggro deck like Night March. There's no one or two cards that you can just add to your deck and win that matchup. And the same thing for bats. So I kind of felt like there's a lot of decks that beat Night March, and there's a lot of decks that beat the bats decks, but there's really nothing that beats both. So because of that, I just decided I was going to play either one or the other type of deck, and I went with bats because I'm just more used to it. I've been playing with bats since they came out. They're like the cards that I use the most from my collection. So I just decided I wanted to play a bats deck. So I was torn between the fighting decks and Manectric, and I actually went with Manectric because, well, the Lucario might seem tempting if a lot of people are playing Manectrics because he hits for weakness, but first of all, it's not an auto win if you're playing Lucario Bats against Manectric Bats, because Manectric can actually hit for 180 damage in a single turn. If you don't manage to to kill a Manectric that only has one energy, they can just play the second energy, use Assault Laser for 140 damage, and then just play a couple of Golbats and kill your Lucario in a single turn. So it's not a very clear-cut matchup. Plus they can play Flash Energy, which will force you... Well, I can speak a little bit more about that when I get to the Flash Energy, so let's just leave it at that. I was torn between the Lucario and the Manectric Bats, but I actually thought the Lucario had a slight upper hand in this particular matchup, so fighting against Manectric, of course, but all the other matchups I felt like the Manectric deck was superior, so I ended up going up with Manectric. The fact that we can use Manectric to hit the bench, I think, makes this deck a little bit better against the aggros. So yeah, I just decided to go with Manectric Bats. The last nail in the coffin, as far as deck choices go, was Piotr Orliansky's list. I hope I'm saying his name right. From the Arena Cup, we have the deck list in here. Let's just open it up. So it was playing a very interesting Manectric bats list. First of all, he was playing. I really like some choices because he's playing a very thick bats deck, and I was also kind of going on that as well. So I was cutting a lot of stuff to add more level balls and all that. But when I saw him just play 4 Zubat, 4 Golbat, 4 Crobat, I just thought, yeah, he's totally right. I just it kind of brings me back to when I started playing bats and I played a very, very thick line, but they started getting cut as time went on. But I think the time is right to play a very thick line of bats, and he's playing a lot of them and a lot of level balls and all that. So that kind of gave me confidence to just play a very thick line of bats and a lot of consistency cards to bring them out. There are some stuff in this deck list that I really didn't like the Wobbuffet. I hate the Wobbuffet in this deck. I don't know, I don't really know what it's doing here. I mean, I guess it can hit the Lucario, but I wasn't really afraid of Lucario. You don't really go with Manectric unless you have an opening to do so. And you'd never go with more than one Manectric. You generally just build up a Crobat and just start attacking the Lucario with that. Because Lucario hits the Crobat really badly, and the Crobat hits the Lucario for weakness. So that's all you really need. You just go with your bats instead, and because you're playing a very thick line, and the Lucario bats tend to play a thinner line of bats, you might have the upper hand in that regard. So yeah, I don't think Wobbuffet is great at all, and it just the deck gets a little less focused. So you have to it has a Dimension Valley in here and 2 Psychic Energies, which I really hated. I mean, you can, I guess one Psychic Energy doesn't really hurt you at all. In fact, I even thought about playing one in my own deck, even though I don't have Wobbuffet in there as well. I can also talk a little bit more about that later, but yeah, it only plays 7 energy, and I tested this list, and I thought sometimes it's really hard to get to the energy, so I also cut those. Sorry, I didn't cut those. I forgot the idea of just playing 7, and I upped my count to 8, and I'm fairly happy with that. I think it's fairly easy to get to the energy when you're playing 8. Never really had a problem finding energy in the matches that I played. Well, sometimes didn't really start with one, but yeah, that was never the reason I lost the games, I think. So the last thing that I have to do, that I have to say about this deck list that really made me want to play Manectric bats is that because Piotr won with this list, I thought a lot of people were going to copy him and play Wobbuffet in his deck lists as well, like kind of scared of the Lucario bats lists. So I just decided that if I had instead of the Wobbuffet and the Dimension Valleys and the Psychic Energy, if I had stuff to fix the mirror match, for example, and to make me stronger against the other matches, it would be way better. And that was the last nail in the coffin. So I just built my deck. I just cut all the superfluous cards and just really went all in with the bats plan, and also led me to have some space to just dedicate to annoying cards like Parallel City. We'll get to that in a second. So let's just go through the deck list finally. Sorry about that big tangent over about the meta and the deck choice. I kind of felt like it can be useful for some of you guys. So yeah, that's why I think the deck is good right now. So let's just go with the deck list. I don't really want to talk about Shaymin EX because there's really not much to be said, but Manectric EX is really interesting because Overrun actually gets used a lot with this deck. There's a lot of times where you just want to Overrun to hit something on the bench, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's what makes this guy so perfect for this deck. Assault Laser, of course, has the potential to deal 140 damage if the opponent has a tool, and we have the Muscle Band on, which paired with a single Crobat is 170, and paired with 2 Golbats is 180. So you will be knocking out EXs real easily with this deck. As I mentioned, Bats line is really thick, 4 Zubat, 4 Golbat, and 3 Crobat. And of course we also have the 3 Level Ball, which I also put as part of the Bats line. We have 1 Super Rod. I think it's better than Sacred Ash in this deck. I really like shuffling the random energy, and I never really, to be honest, never really needed to shuffle more than 3 Pokemon. Sometimes in the later stages of the game you kind of think, oh yeah, maybe I could shuffle the 4th and the 5th, but to be if you are honest with yourself, generally you only need draw that single Crobat, and you want to maximize the chances. So shuffling random Manectrics and Zubats in there is not going to help you out anyways. So yeah, I'm really happy with Super Rod. I think I never really wanted to shuffle more than 3, and the fact that you can shuffle energy is really clutch. Super Scoop Up is the best card of the deck. There's really not much to be said about it. Just being able to do some more damage, draw extra cards, and of course heal off all the damage from the Manectric. If you're not playing against that, does 1-hit KOs, it's incredible. So yeah, it's the best card of the deck for sure. 3 Trainer's Mail helps us draw into our other cards, so it's extra consistency. 4 Ultra Ball which helps us get our Manectric, our Shaman, and of course everything from the Bats line as well. 4 Via Seeker to grab our supporters back. 1 AZ because this is supporter Super Scoop Up that you can bring back with a VS Seeker, so it's extra flexibility with your VS Seekers. There's 1 Giovanni Scheme. This is the first deck that I actually think Giovanni Scheme is really good at. I've played this in a lot of my last decks that I built for this channel. You guys know how that was. But I actually never was super happy with it. It deals 20 extra damage, which in a lot of matchups isn't really that clutch. But in this deck, because you're playing bats, it's kind of like an extra way to deal extra damage. Kind of turns your VS Seekers into ways to deal extra damage. To be honest, I only used it to deal damage in like 2 games out of the whole run, but the fact that you can just use it to draw cards, if nothing else, is really good. So yeah, I really like Giovanni Scheme. It's really flexible. Having a 1 count in here is, I think, really nice. Judge, this is the first card that I decided that I really wanted to play, starting with Piotr's list, so I cut his Birch and added a Judge. I think the deck can really take a Judge nicely because we have so many consistency cards. If we have a Shaman in the deck and we Judge, there's a really high chance that we can get out of that anyways, and the fact that we can just use this on the first turn and put our opponent down to 4 cards after we fill our bench with bats is amazing, I think. So I really wanted to play Judge. It was pretty good throughout the whole regional, and there were a lot of times that the opponent judged, and I actually never got a bad hand out of a Judge. I think throughout all the games, always got a way to get out of it pretty quickly. So yeah, 2 Lysander to bring out the Pokemon that we want and take the knockouts where we need them. 4 Sycamore, really not much to say about that. 1 Xerosic, I used Xerosic exactly once during the whole tournament, and it was to remove a Headringer from my Manectric. In that regard, it's really nice, but there's something to be said about that. I played a lot of mirrors, as I mentioned, and believe it or not, people were not playing Headringers in their Manectric decks, and I think that's 100% wrong. And actually, that gave me some free win. It's not really free wins, but I kind of consider them free wins because I was playing against this fellow player, Portuguese player, and he was playing his Manectric deck list with Wobbuffet in there, and I was like, yeah, okay, he has Wobbuffet, and he actually managed to take a knockout with Wobbuffet, which was kind of nice because he traded nicely with prizes. But I will always have the upper hand because I noticed on the first game that he never played the Headringer, and I was always afraid of it, but I kept playing, you know. I missed the Muscle Band on the first and second turn, and I was kind of scared, but the fact that he did not play a Headringer on those turns made me think, well, does he not have it in his deck? So I kept playing the matchup, and we went through most of our deck, as you do in this type of decks. So I looked at his discard pile before I finished the game, and yeah, there were no Headringers in there. I didn't miss them at all. So he just didn't have them. So I just played the second match really easily with the knowledge that he did not have the Headringer. I just never put the Muscle Band on my Manectric, and he was always hitting for 60 with his own Manectric, and I was hitting for 120. So there's really nothing else to be said about that. You really have to play Headringers, if nothing else, for the mirror match. I think they're pretty important. And then in that regard, I think Xerosic becomes a really clutch card. I only used it once, as I mentioned. I also, I used it twice. One other time was to remove DC from the size method, but he was able to get the DC again the following turn. Well, that's expected, I think. He has more DCs than we do have Xerosics, but other than that, I think it's here to remove the Headringers and nothing else. So in that regard, I think it's pretty cool. Plus, you can also remove the tool from your opponent and stick your own Headringer in there. So that's also nice. But yeah, it wasn't that missed in this particular tournament, but maybe I still think it's an important card. Okay, we get to some interesting choices. I think the biggest differences from my deck are the Parallel City and the Flash Energy. Actually, I'll leave those for the end. So, as I mentioned, we have 3 Muscle Band in here, really good to deal extra damage with our Manectrics and of course our bats if we need to. And we have the 2 Headringers that I mentioned are really key. We have to play Headringers in this deck. We really want to be able to hit for a lot of damage with our Manectrics. Even a Niveltal, if left unchecked, so if our opponent has a Niveltal down and we don't have the Ringer, the Niveltal, our opponent will not put a Muscle Band in there, and that means that we can only 2-hit knock out the... we can use the Manectric and add bats in that, but we really, in the Ivoltol decks, we want to use the bats to knock out the Zorwas and all that, so yeah, it's just better to just be able to put a Headringer on the Ivoltol and just be able to knock it out in a single hit, so yeah, it's also really nice there. So I'm playing 8 energy as I mentioned, and now I think we'll go to the most different cards that I think I'm playing from the most Manectric deck. So the first one is Parallel City. I think this card was awesome in the tournament. I used both modes, and I don't think people really give it a lot of credit, but I think it was pretty awesome. Well, first of all, against decks that have Toad, and I didn't care too much about my own bench. Sometimes I even used it to get rid of 2 Shaman that I had in my bench. So you can play the blue side facing yourself and get rid of... And you only have 3 slots in your bench, but in the later stages of the game it doesn't really matter because you're not benching anything else. You're not benching any extra Zubats or all that. So you don't really care too much. And it obviously cuts the damage from Seismitoad and makes it a miserable Pokemon. It just gives you a lot of time to just find your energy and get out of that. But the mode that I used the most, of course, was just giving my opponent the blue side, which means he cannot have more than 3 Pokemon on his bench. And because we choose when we play the Parallel City, of course, we will be playing it when the opponent kind of needs bench space to play extra Shamans and bench extra attackers to get them ready for combat. So against decks like Ivoltol Zorwork, I think this was pretty cool. Just being able to stick one down, and especially because those decks, I played against 2 different opponents playing that deck, and they did not play any stadiums in their own decks because they wanted to get to the Gallades and all that, and because we had Parallel City in there, they couldn't get rid of it, so they were forced to play a very tight game. Weren't able to draw a lot of cards out of Shamans, and I think that helps us a lot. If they use 1 Shaman, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the only times I didn't want to play Parallel City was when they had like 4 Pokemon down. One of them was a Shaman, and we would play this and they would just get rid of that Shaman so that we couldn't Lysander it back. But still, in those times, even if I felt like they really needed the card draw, I would put this thing down because they would lose the last bench slot. So it wasn't that bad either. I guess the worst place to place this is when the opponent has a full bench and 2 of those are Shamans, because he can just discard the Shamans, get rid of them. And when that happens, you just don't play Parallel City, you just discard it or something. So yeah, pretty cool card. I really loved it. And because we didn't really need any other stadium in this deck, I mean, what other stadium are we playing here? Dimension Valley, I felt like it was going to also help my opponent's bats. And the fact that we could also play the Rough Seas is something to consider, but I don't know. Against other bats decks, I don't think it helps a lot, because the Lucarios are going to 1-hit KO you anyways, your Manectrics most of the time, and against other bats decks, they are also using it to heal off their Manectrics, so I just thought the Rough Seas was not great here, so I just went with this. Okay, we get to the Flash Energy. Is it worth it? I think it is. Can you imagine playing a Zorwark Gallade deck, and it's really hard to hit the Gallade. I'm not a fan of that strategy at all, as it is. I think in Expanded, it's really easy to get the Maxis out to bring the Archeops, but you have Jirachi EX in Expanded, and you don't have it here. So I think it's a lot harder to get the Gallade into play, and my opponents, I ask them after every single game, and they all agree with me. It's when you get it out, it's awesome, but a lot of times you don't, so it's just terrible. And can you imagine just going through a lot of work just to get your Gallade out, and you get it out and you're awesome. You're like, yeah, I'm set. I'm going to kill that Manectric, and your opponent just drops a flash energy on your Manectric. That's just terrible. He's not knocking you out on a single hit, and his Gallade, well, it can endure some damage, but it's not. It's weak to a Crobat attack and all that. So yeah, I don't think. I'm a huge fan of that version, and because I'm playing Flash Energy, I was expecting some Gallade, but actually against the Lucario bats, this also helps you a lot. If you're thinking, yeah, they can just play the Hammer and get rid of it. Yeah, that's true, but the fact that they have to play a Corina and go look for the Hammer instead of going look for a Muscle Band, for example, is really clutch, because that means they are probably not even getting to the 90 damage they need with a single energy. Which means that, yeah, they do get rid of your energy, but they would get rid of your energy anyways if they 1-hit KO your Manectric, and that's a lot worse. So the fact that we forced them to get something else out of the Corina, I think is worth it, because they would be getting rid of the energy anyways by killing the Manectric on a single hit. So yeah, I think it's totally worth to play the Flash Energy in here. And I'm only playing 2, so because also there's not a lot of enhanced hammers going around except for those decks, and I guess Seismitoad Giratina decks, but I wasn't expecting a lot of Seismitoad Giratina decks. So yeah, I felt like playing 2 Flash Energies was going to be good, and yeah, we got there. I think I got it removed by a Zero-Zik once, but it didn't really matter too much. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the deck choice, of course, and I'm pretty happy with most of the cards in my deck list. As I mentioned, I think something that I could have changed was play 5 Lightning Energy and a single Psychic Energy, and that might seem strange, but the reason for that would be you don't really lose anything by playing a single Psychic Energy, because there's no combination of energy that you can have that doesn't allow you to use any of your attacks, because Manectric Assault Laser only takes a single Lightning Energy. You can just go with Lightning and something else, so the Psychic Energy never really hurts you unless you're playing 2, because you could then just those be the only 2 energy that you had in your hand, and you had to put both on your Manectric, which wouldn't allow you to use Assault Laser. So, but just playing a single one wouldn't hurt you at all, right? And the fact that I would just pretend to have the Wobbuffet in here maybe could force my opponent to play it differently. Maybe it would force them to not put the Dimension Value down over my Parallel City, something like that. So you wouldn't really lose anything, but I only remembered about doing that after I got to the tournament site, so I didn't really want to go look for a Psychic Energy, so I just decided to go with it. So yeah, it's just a minor thing. It's just a minor bluff that would maybe come up once in 100 games, but you don't really lose anything by doing that. So I guess it's an extra win out of 100 games or something. So yeah, let's just play a match to show you guys how smooth this deck goes. There's really not much that I can say about it. Sorry for taking this long to explain everything, but yeah, I felt like it's worth it, because it's kind of like my best result to date, winning a regional. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. Let's just go play the match. Sorry that I took so long with the deck tech. I got a little bit carried away. I had so much to say about the deck. So many little details about the deck list. Okay, so we lost a coin flip. We're probably going second here. Yeah. Our opponent chooses to go first, so I'm not expecting any Night March decks. Okay, we take a mulligan. Hopefully, yeah, this deck takes some mulligans. It does play very few basics. We have 5. Actually, we have 9. Okay, so we start off with a Shaymin, which isn't the greatest thing ever, but if we manage to find a scoop, we can bring it back to our hand and just play it again. So let's see how this goes. Taking a little bit of time. Oh, we see an Yveltal. So maybe this is the Zoroark deck. The question is just, is my opponent playing Gallade, or is he playing the Zorua Break or Seismitoad? I don't know. We'll see about that, I guess. Maybe this is just Yveltal Vespiquen. Yeah. Oh, okay, so we see the Gallade. I was going to say it's probable that it's Vespiquen because he just played the Battle Compressor, but I guess the Gallade deck does too. And the Zoroark deck in general, I mean, you can just get the supporters into the discard pile along with the energies for Oblivion Wing, so there's a lot of upside. So let's see if my opponent actually manages to pull off the Gallade. In the meantime, I'm just hopeful I can draw. Oh, we got judged on the first turn. Ugh, that sucks. Let's see if we do manage to get out of judge or not. I've been saying that this deck gets out of judge pretty nicely. Okay, we have card draw, so yeah, there's the Gallade and the Maxis. Okay, we drew the Sycamore, which is perfect, and we also have this one. We have another Sycamore and a Super Scoop. I don't think I want any of those cards in my hand because I'm just going to discard them. I'm going to play the Muscle Band because we might play the Scoop and bring it back to our hand later. So, okay, we do have the Scoop here, and we also have the Zubat. So I think I'm going to play the Manectric first, because if the Scoop hits, that's the guy that I want to promote to the active. And we also have the Flash Energy for the Gallade. As I mentioned, most decks nowadays don't play Hammers, so hopefully this is the case. And Hammers are not great in the Gallade deck because sometimes they get stuck in your hand. They don't let you use Gallade properly or go out using Maxis. I mean, let's play the Shaman because I want to find other bats, Zubats. We do not. We do have the Parallel City, which I think I have to discard for this Ultra Ball. Yeah, I'd love to put it down, stifle my opponent a little bit, but right now I think just getting yeah, we have still 2 Zubats. It's more important to get the Zubats down than anything else, so yeah, I guess I can play Shaman again. We can maybe get rid of the Shamans later if we find another Parallel City. Okay, let's just overrun here. Yveltal, bam, 80 damage. That thing is getting really close to a knockout, so we're off to a good start. We did not hit anything on my opponent's bench, which is kind of a shame, but oh well, what are we going to do? There's an Ultra Ball, Golden Ultra Ball. So my opponent has a lot of bling bling in his deck. There's the Zorua. It's the one with whiny voice. I don't know. I think I like the other one better just because it confuses the opponent's Pokemon. I think that's larger upside. And we see the DCE. That's actually interesting. So if we find another Golbat, we can take a knockout on that thing next turn. Oh, yeah, he actually pulls off the Maxis. So he's got a Gallade. Lucky for us, we have that Flash Energy on the Manectric, so I'm not too worried about that. He has to do some work to kill off our Manectric anyways. I mean, dealing 30 damage to it right here is actually enough, just because my Manectric goes down to 140. So if he sticks some Muscle Band on that Gallade, he actually kills the Manectric. 130, 150, yeah, he does. So even with the weakness protecting us. With the weakness protection, I mean. There's a Trainer's Mail. My opponent is digging for what? I don't know. Oh, Enhanced Hammer. Seriously? It does play it. Oh, okay. The worst thing about it is that we kind of get... He gets rid of our energy, because... as I said, the Gallade was going to kill the Manectric anyways, but now I can just bench the one that I have in my hand and stick the energy in there, because I have to stick it into the active if I want to attack again. My opponent is using Premonition. I hate Premonition, to be honest. I think people take a long time using it. So I'd rather just... It's kind of similar to a Magic the Gathering card called Sensei's Divining Top, which has actually been banned from a format where it was legal, just because it took the longest time for people to play it. So yeah, can actually kill that Zorua, as I mentioned. I think. I'm going to grab a Golbat here. Yeah, still have another 2 left. And I'm going to snipe that thing. Unfortunately, I have to finish it off with the attack, so it means I will not be... What? Can't put this Golbat down. Okay. Which means I cannot draw Uprise in the middle of my turn, which would be perfect, because it would increase our options, but yeah, I think I just Sycamore here. Let's see what we draw. Okay, we got another Zubat, which is perfect, and we got another Flash Energy, which is actually out of... that's kind of sucks, because I won't be able to use that energy on my bats. As I mentioned, it doesn't really make a lot of difference if my opponent manages to attack us with a Gallade this turn. So, yeah, I think I played a Parallel City, getting rid of my 2 Shamans, because that's 2 EXs that my opponent will not be able to knock out. He's taking 2 prizes out of the Manectric, but then he has to go through 4 bats, so hopefully we can do some work with them. So yeah, Overrun, let's go, let's just kill 2 of his Pokemon and just get knocked out. But as I mentioned, we would be getting knocked out anyway, so... And we drew the Lightning Energy, which is great for us here, and a VS Seeker, We can use it for card draw, so we can actually get something else with the Trainer's Mail, if that actually comes up. We'll see about that. My opponent, yeah, he seems like... I cannot imagine him not killing us with a Gallade. He used Premonition, so he's bound to be drawing something nice. And then we go with a Golbat, so we can actually evolve. Yeah, we need a Muscle Band and a Crobat, because this level wall can find us a Golbat, and that's 20, and then the Crobat is 30, so that's 150, so it goes down to 100, and then I stick that energy. Oh no, Hex Maniac! Oh, that's terrible. I won't be able to kill that thing now. Oh. Yeah, that Hex Maniac was really well placed. Kudos to my opponent, he played it really nicely. Yeah, that was really strong. And we did draw the Muscle Band, so the only thing we needed would be the Ultra Ball. So I'm kinda... Oh man, yeah, that sucks. Super Scoop Up or Sycamore? Don't really know. I kind of feel like we have to play this VS Seeker for the Sycamore anyways. Or maybe I could play it for... I don't know. I have the Giovanni in my discard pile. I know that. Maybe I just grab the Scoop. Oh boy. I don't feel like I'm going to play the Scoop Up, to be honest. I think that I'm going to Lysander this turn. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, let's grab the Scoop Up. I don't think I'm going to use it, but might have the option anyways. I'm not sure it's going to be useful in the future as well, so might as well. Yeah, we have the Giovanni in there, but I cannot Lysander and Giovanni in the same turn, which kind of sucks. So I'm just going to grab that thing. I'm going to put this energy on. Actually, the bench guy, I think I want to protect him. I want to protect the energy drop, because I'm pretty sure my opponent will kill my Golbat anyways, but I'm just going to make his life harder. If he has to dig for the Floatstone, that kind of means that he's probably not playing Lysander this turn, so we protect the energy. And we can actually knock out the Gallade next turn. Unless, of course, he finds a Shaman here. Yep, there's a Shaman, so he can actually use the X-Maniac anyways. And kill our Golbat, which is terrible for us, but let's see what happens. No more X-Maniacs, please. Yeah, well-placed X-Maniac sometimes ruins this deck's life. Oh, there's the Floatstone. So this Golbat is indeed going to die. If he kills the other one, it's not the end of the world. I just need to find an energy in my deck, so another floatstone, okay. Kind of feeling good about this. There it is on the Shaman, and then the Sycamore, alright. At the same time, this means my opponent is going to probably find a DCE, which means he can put it on the Zoroark and kill my Golbat without exposing his... Oh boy, that's terrible for us. You know what? It doesn't really matter, because we put the 50 damage on the Gallade, and then we start attacking the Zoroark, I think. Because that means that if my opponent ever brings the Gallade into the active position, I can knock it out. Yeah, I like that. I like that play. Okay. Premonition again. At least this opponent is fairly quick with his premonitions, which is nice. I played against a dedicated Gallade deck, which actually evolved Gallade. That's also a pretty fun deck. I might even play it myself someday, but they just premonition after premonition, and it's really boring, so... Alright. Might be wrong in doing this. I mean, I'm definitely... Oh, there's another energy. That's nice. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have to do that. Might be wrong, but I feel like the Gallade is really hard to kill right now, and I can manage the damage from the Zoroark a lot better. I mean, at this point he's only dealing 40 damage to us, so I think I can just play a Crobat and win the damage race on that. This thing... yeah, I'm going to put it here. Well, it doesn't really matter. I can retreat from the active. So right now I'm going to shuffle a Crobat, that's for sure. Can go for the Manectric. Might be useful in the future. Yeah, I like that. And I guess we have a Golbat in the deck, so maybe the Zubat will be nice. Allow us to make use of those last 20 damage. Let's go for the Sycamore. And just draw a lot of cards here. And yeah, we got the Crobat, which I think I'll use right now. We also have the Muscle Band. I think I'm going to put it down, yeah. I like having my bats with Muscle Bands. Alright, let's put 3 damage on this guy. And I think I keep my Ultra Balls, because I can use them next turn. I'm just going to attack the Zoroark. I'm going to deal 30 damage. Yeah, the Muscle Band offsets the resistance. And then if I need extra damage to kill that thing, because I'm only dealing 30 and he deals 40 to me, but I can just get the 30 extra from the Crobat that I shuffled into my deck. We'll see how my opponent plays it here. Okay, there's an Ultra Ball. And he's going for... Ooh, a Yveltal EX. Okay, that's interesting. Kinda glad that I shuffled my Manectric. I can play this Head Ringer on that thing. At least it will stop him from using Y Cyclone and protecting his energies if my Manectric play comes up. This is definitely a tight game. There's a lot of very interesting decisions that we have to make, like, do we bench a Pokemon or not for Zoroark? Which guy do we go for? Okay, so my opponent plays the VS Seeker. I'm kind of scared of what's coming. Judge. Okay. I don't know if I would play a Judge here if I were my opponent. I don't really know what he's thinking about. Okay, we drew the Sycamore, which is pretty interesting. Also had the AZ, but yeah, I think I don't know if my opponent has a Muscle Band, this Crobat is dead. So I don't know if I'm going to have the chance to use this AZ at all. Yeah, he's switching. I cannot imagine him attacking. Yeah, I couldn't imagine him just going for it without having the muscle band in hand. My opponent is playing really nicely, so I'm taking him 100% seriously. Okay, we kind of have to bench this Zubat. Well, on one hand we will take a... Oh, now we drew this thing. We'll take extra damage from the Zoroark, but it's only 30, so I have to be careful with how many I bench. Okay, we do have the Crobat, I think. Yeah, we discard this thing and I guess a Scoop. And let's go for the Crobat. Yeah, there's two there. There's a Golbat and another Crobat. Okay. Alright, let's play this thing. And I'm going to deal the damage to... I don't know where I'm going to put the damage. I think I'm just going for the Zoroark, because that's the hardest nut to crack. I can kill it with a well-placed attack next turn. And another Golbat, so I'm going for that. I'm not really scared of the Yveltal, as I mentioned. I have the Manectric in my deck, and I think it's going to be a tough nut for my opponent's Yveltal to crack, to be honest. We get a highly irrelevant Zubat at this point. Yeah, this guy's at 40, but unfortunately I don't have two Golbats to go for. So my plan is playing this Ultra Ball, grabbing a Manectric, just in case my opponent starts to get frisky. And then I play this. I can't even play the Sycamore, unfortunately. Oh, another Judge. Is my opponent going to play that? I think that's 100% wrong. I mean, he doesn't know my hand, but I don't know. I don't know if I would play the Judge if I were my opponent. I think he's going to play it, or else I don't think he would have drawn it from the VS Seeker. But let's see. Let's see what happens. I hope he does play it, yeah, because I really want to see another hand, especially if we draw the Manectric and Energy. I mean, the Scoop was important. Yep, we have the Manectric and an Energy. So if we actually hit the Scoop, I'm thinking that maybe I shouldn't have. I should have discarded the Sycamore instead of the other Scoop, because I had two chances to use the Scoop up, and I think having the yeah, my opponent attacks with Yveltal, so I don't even need a. So the problem here is, let's see if we hit with this. Oh, we don't. I needed the muscle band so bad, because I would be hitting that guy for 80 damage, and he would be in very, very bad place. So I'm just going to... Oh, my opponent concedes. That's interesting. Was not expecting that, but yeah, I don't really know if this would be enough, because this would be my play. I just put the Manectric down, grab the AZ, Scoop the Crobat to my hand, play the Energy on the Manectric, deal 20 damage to the Zoroark on the bench, and then kill it off with Manectric. I would draw an extra card, and then I had to get rid of the Yveltal that would have 40 damage on. Maybe I could draw another Energy, which would hopefully just kill it, combined with the bats that I would have in my hand. But yeah, I would have a lot of game against my opponent. I don't know if he scooped. I don't know. I don't really know what else he had in hand, but I wouldn't have scooped in his place. I would have kept playing, because I kind of had to pull it off. It didn't even see if I had a Manectric or not in my hand, so don't really know what that was about. But yeah, I'll take it. This is definitely a close match, and I'm really happy this was the game that I got to record for you guys, because this was super close and honestly a very tight game. Definitely a nail biter. So yeah, tell me what you guys think about the deck. I hope you enjoy it. I hope this was useful for you guys if you are planning to play the deck. Let's see how the meta shifts from here on out. But yeah, definitely, of course, because I won the regional, I wouldn't have done anything differently. But yeah, I'm quite happy with the deck. I think it's pretty cool. So I see you guys next time. Bye.